Supriya Shrinate of the Congress Party joining me on the broadcast. Supriya Shrinate, the Prime Minister says that the biggest attack on corruption is taking place right now, and that is why forces inimical to India, both outside and inside, are uniting to target the government.
A rattled Prime Minister is out there to protect the man whose alliances, whose allegiance, whose relationship with the Prime Minister is in question, a man who's being questioned by global agencies, a man who's saddled with corruption charges. His name is Govt Adani, Mr. Modi's good friend. Mr. Modi has to tell the country today why is he not ordering a probe into allegations that saddle Govt Adani. Mr. Modi has to answer why does he, his government, his ministers and his MPs are out to defend Govt Adani, are out to defend Modi, are out to defend Lalit Modi and Mr. Modi's Mehul Bhai. Mr. Modi can no longer distract this nation because Mr. Modi is inimical to India's democracy. Mr. Modi is consistently weakening democratic powers in India. He's undermining institutions, and his only sole purpose right now seems to be to save Adani at any cost. And he's
Supriya Shrinate,
let me finish. He's
okay.
even willing to sacrifice a democracy and institutions like Parliament for it. So he should be the last person talking on democracy and on corruption. He's
the fact that the Prime Minister mentions that because there is action against corruption, and he says it's the biggest action on corruption, that the corrupt are getting together and targeting institutions of this country like the Parliament, like courts, like institutions that are acting against the corrupt, ma'am.
Mr. Gaurav Sawant, India's Parliament is not being able to function because the ruling government, and this is unprecedented in 75 years of since Indian independence, it is the ruling government which is not allowing Parliament to function. It is the ruling government running away from setting up a JPC because they want to defend Adani. It's the ruling government that's undermining institutions like the Supreme Court when the law minister says ex-judges are anti-Indian. It's the ruling government that has put every democratic institution at stake for Mr. Adani. So they should shut up and actually probe a JPC, set up agencies, get these agencies to probe allegations that surround Mr. Adani, because everything else that they say is hollow, is hypocritical, and is double-speak. Thank you. I've got to go.
Supriya Shrinate of the Congress Party for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks. I want to bring in Aishwarya Paliwal. Aishwarya, this speech of the Prime Minister may have been to his cadre, but this is the template, as Shiv was pointing out, for the party rank and file, not just for Karnataka elections. And he's talking about inroads that the party is making, whether in Karnataka, he says we are the single largest party, his party is the single largest party there, but in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. But there's an interesting point. When he targets the opposition, Aishwarya, he says in the Congress era, in the banks were looted to a tune of 22,000 crore, and he says in his government they've been able to recover properties worth 20,000 crore. He talks about PMLA cases, Prevention of Corruption Act cases, and his point is he's being targeted because he's targeting corruption, Aishwarya.
Well, Gaurav, one thing that the Prime Minister has done is to make sure that there is a lot of emotion amongst those who are, who work for the Bhartiya Janata Party. He spoke about the fact that this is a party which has really come up from the ground. And that's the reason why we are seeing the kind of visuals, Gaurav, that you see right behind me, the kind of support that Prime Minister, can see, the number of people who at the moment are now waiting for the Prime Minister to step out, the car of Prime Minister right there. All these things obviously point towards the fact that there is a big emotional appeal that the Prime Minister spoke about. He also spoke about corruption, because that's something that all the opposition parties at the moment are blaming the Prime Minister of indulging in. All the opposition parties, 17, 18 parties, we have been seeing how they have been wearing black and talking about the fact that it is the Prime Minister who's indulging in corruption, and Prime Minister has given it back and said it is not me, not my party. In fact, it is the Congress and all the other parties who have been indulging in corruption over the past 70 years, and now they are pointing fingers at me because I'm the one who's now trying to clean up the system. And that's the reason, Gaurav, for the
Okay.
visuals that you see right behind me. We are expecting the Prime Minister to leave the premise in just a couple of minutes from now. Most of the leaders, most of the top BJP leaders, Gaurav, now making their way out. Definitely, this is the road, the big road for the big 2024 elections. Gaurav.
Road to 2024, that Shiv actually goes through Karnataka first and a number of other elections, and the Prime Minister spoke of the template of the Northeast, and this is something that the Prime Minister talked about even at the India Today conclave, Shiv, where he says it's the Northeast that shows his Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas ideology, where the government may be in power in, the BJP may be in power in 3 states, but also is in power in 2 other states in a place which isn't Hindu dominated, Shiv.
That's right. You know, Gaurav, taking all of these examples, and we all know that the Prime Minister loves taking the example of the Northeast, not only because it's one of his pet topics, but also because, his political investment of capital in the Northeast over the last 9 years has borne amazing fruit for the BJP in the first set of elections of 2023. The Prime Minister is keenly aware of that, and he also knows that if the BJP, with all its political investments in that area, has been able to reap those political benefits, then the sky is proverbially the limit. And that's one of the reasons why going into Karnataka, where, remember, perceptionally speaking, the BJP is seen to be on the back foot. But what the Prime Minister is signaling here, not only with his words, but also by his actions in the multiple visits to Karnataka recently and the multiple, infrastructure projects that have been inaugurated, is signaling that the BJP continues to be as battle ready as possible. Very important that you noted, Gaurav, that this speech is not only to the BJP leadership and to its karyakartas, but also an open message to the opposition. Because remember, the opposition has been getting a lot of media traction because of the issues it's been raising, what's been happening in Parliament, what's been happening outside Parliament. Few people would have missed the fact that while the Prime Minister was speaking, there was a torch rally outside Red Fort where certain opposition leaders, were being removed from there and detained as well. So the Prime Minister is basically trying to say this is a union of frustrated parties that have not been able to reach their objectives because of the success of the BJP, and that success is not going to stop this year. That was the basic message that the Prime Minister was putting out, and he also basically said that the frustration of those parties is manifesting itself in this smear campaign against institutions, a smear campaign against the government. Having said that, the Prime Minister knows very well that each of his speeches is also politically active, Gaurav. Every one of his speeches will go out into the general public. It's not just about the Karyakartas. As you rightly said, it's also very much about Karnataka.